enlightened gamer. Welcome back to Let's Play Twilight Princess, where we are deep within the Arbiter's grounds hunting for ghosts. Hey everybody, Ninjo X here. I've already given you the anatomy of the Goron and the anatomy of the Zora. And after I said I was going to give you the anatomy of the Zora, I promised one more. I don't think I'm going to be able to do any after this. There might be one, but I seriously doubt it. This is anatomy of the Twili, but really it's not so much anatomy as much as it is origin. We know that the sorcerers came from the world of light. And I just want you to leave that right there because I'm going to talk about the other races of light. The Twili, they couldn't have been the Gorons or the Zoras. There just isn't enough information linking either of those races to the Twili, to Midna or Zant. The two Twili that we've seen up to this point, or even to the other Twili that we'll see way later in the game. But there is a race that could have become the Twili in this game. Okay. The major races of Hyrule in the time of Ocarina of Time are the Gorons, the Zoras, the Hylians, which have the physical appearance of an elf, but still basically the anatomy of a human being, the Kokiri, and the Gerudo. Deku Scrubs are also in there, but they don't really have much of a culture outside of Majora's Mask. And they don't have any links to magic. So there's that. We're throwing the Deku Scrubs out early. Also the Hylians, because there's just not, same with the Zoras and the Gorons, there's just not enough links between them and the Twili. That leaves us with the Kokiri and the Gerudo. And this is where things get interesting. First, I'm going to tell you the story as I've discerned it of what happened to the Kokiri in the child timeline after Link returned the Master Sword to its planet. For a time, Link lived with the Kokiri, but he was always an outsider. He was never really meant to be one of the Kokiri, to live with them. That wasn't his destiny. So, eventually, he found an excuse to leave Kokiri Forest, to venture into the Lost Woods, in search of a new adventure. Well, we know from cutscenes in Majora, from cutscenes prior to what we would assume to be Link's death, if we're to believe Game Theory's Grief Theory, which is brilliant, by the way. Okay. Link did two things. First, he borrowed the Ocarina of Time from Zelda, or it was given to him by her, likely to keep it out of the hands of Ganon, who is still very much alive. Ganon was sealed in the future. He's still wandering around chasing after Zelda in the past. Or at least he was for a time. So, the Kokiri, we saw what happened to them in Ocarina of Time when adult Link returned to the forest. Between the curse on the forest temple and the lack of the barrier of life produced by the Great Deku Tree, monsters from the Lost Woods invaded Kokiri Village. And the Kokiri were all hiding in their houses, protecting themselves from the immense dangers outside. Which brings me to a very sad realization. In Twilight Princess, the Kokiri went extinct. They're dead. They didn't turn into Deku Scrubs or into whatever the creatures are in the Wind Waker. I don't know what their name is. So, they're gone. What happened whenever Link left? Link died. While Link stayed in the forest, he was able to keep it, I'd like to think he was able to keep it relatively clear of monsters. But with no Link, child or no, with no outside help, pretty much nobody knowing of their existence in the whole land of Hyrule because of the Deku Tree sheltering them, and no barrier of life, no one to break the curse in the forest temple. The Kokiri were killed off. They died. Every single one of them. They became stall children. Their bodies were buried in the Arbiter's grounds. That's where the stall children come from. They're theoretically, let me state this again because I don't think I can state it enough times. I didn't do any research. This is more based off of reflection and observation. That the stall children are the dead Kokiri villagers. Which, by process of elimination, eliminate the impossible, and whatever remains, regardless of how improbable, must be the truth. Do you remember how I said Ganon was still alive? At the end of the child's story, alive and free. At least for a time. The leader of the Gerudo, Naiburu, Child Link, witnessed her capture. So she was still shackled by Kotake and Kotume. Kotake and Kotume. I'm really proud of myself for figuring out a workable pronunciation for those characters. But she was imprisoned. She was turned into an iron knuckle, which for those of you who don't know the 3D Zelda lore is basically a thicker, slower Darknut. She was enslaved and the Gerudo were without a leader. Well, I'm sure that the incompetent Hylian soldiers couldn't keep Ganon locked up forever if he ever was. So I theorize that Ganon, who even without the Triforce of Power, was an immensely powerful sorcerer, is the one who created the fused shadows and taught the Gerudo how to use them. Well, Ninjo, you haven't given us any real evidence yet. I'm going to give one piece of evidence right now. Midna's body. Look at Midna's body. What two colors are it? Black and green. There's only one race besides the Bokoblins who has ever been known to have green skin in the Zelda universe. The Gerudo. Also, in this picture right here, take a look at Midna's hair. I've already explained that this isn't a fist, it's a hair that she's molded into a fist with the power of the fused shadow. Her hair is bright red. Other than Malon, whose mother may very well have been a Gerudo thief, sorry, that's a really tough one to get straight. A Gerudo thief. Red hair is extraordinarily rare among the Hylians. But almost every Gerudo has red hair. a female Twili want to keep one of the most dominant traits of her species alive? Also, we have an origin for Zant in all this. The Gerudo tell you that once every 100 years or so, a male Gerudo is born. But that other than that, they're all female. Zant was the worthy successor to Ganondorf. And his unique story, I'm not going to divulge any more than that. But it would explain the link to his power. And it would explain a lot more down the road. There's so much to talk about here. It's actually incredible. So we've determined beyond a reasonable doubt that the Gerudo, who already had access to magic in their lore, as evidenced by both Nairu's love and the ice arrows being obtainable only in the Gerudo fortress and outside the spirit temple, as well as their possible manufacturing of the silver gauntlets, which magically enhance your strength, and the mirror shield, whose only purpose is to redirect spells and light. But it was manufactured to redirect spells. We'll just say that Link discovered that other use for it. So that's my theory. And I hope you guys appreciate it, but we're not done. We're actually still going strong. Now I can talk about now that we've finally been to each of the major areas in Hyrule, I can finally talk about the curvature of the land, the layout of the map. The map in Twilight Princess is wrong. A lot of fans theorize that Ordon Village was Kokiri Forest. And while I'd say that's certainly a possibility, it shouldn't be where it's located. The Master Sword was laid to rest in the Temple of Time at the end of Ocarina of Time. So unless the Temple of Time magically moved to behind Kokiri Forest, where we got the Master Sword, then that makes no sense. I theorize that Ganondorf destroyed Hyrule Castle Town as it was in Ocarina. That the villagers fled to the highest point on the map, the ranch, Romani Ranch, or Lon Lon Ranch. They fled to Lon Lon Ranch, where they were able to regain their forces and fight back. But Castletown was destroyed. I theorize that the Ordon province is the old grounds of Hyrule Castle, and that the Faron province is the surrounding market, greatly blown up in size for effect, but it still makes sense. Either way, the map is still wrong, because we'll find out later that the Kakariko village in Twilight Princess is not actually the Kakariko village from Ocarina of Time. That Kakariko was buried and forgotten. The new Kakariko is actually where Zora's domain is on the map in Ocarina of Time, And Zora's domain has somehow moved to behind Lake Hylia. Actually, that does make sense. The Zoras rebuilt their domain behind Lake Hylia, closer to their water source. That would make sense, actually, because the new Kakariko village is the resting place for the Zoras. Oh my word, that actually makes sense. The new Kakariko village is the resting place for all Zoras because it was already in Zora's domain. It was just changed into a village so that the Hylians could survive and expand while the Zoras retreated to Lake Hylia, probably to protect themselves from Ganon. That actually makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure I've got a bunch of holes in this whole theory, but I'm gonna keep on rolling with it. I'm having a good time. Death Mountain pretty much never changes. It's still a volcano. It erupts from time to time. It shoots out rocks. But it's always there. In almost every single Zelda game. Every one that takes place in Hyrule. It's just curious. Anyway. So the Kokiri... Why were the Kokiri buried in Gerudo's Valley, though? It would make sense, though, if the goddesses, or really the three light spirits, chase the Gerudo back to Gerudo's Valley, where they were thrust into the Twilight Realm. And I'm sure not all of the Gerudo were to blame for the actions of the few that were likely very loyal to Ganondorf. But it begs to question. A lot of things are thrown into question. Are Kotake and Kotume very, very ancient Gerudo? Because if so, then the Gerudo, even without Ganon's support, have shown the ability to craft very powerful sorcerers. It's just fascinating, some of this stuff that gets just brushed over. And I don't blame people for brushing over it. I actually had a failed take on this discussion because I got sidetracked in a theory that turned out to be groundless. Baseless. The Gerudo not existing in Twilight Princess's Hyrule Field also makes sense. The Gerudo were very competent fighters, even if not soldiers. I could hardly imagine creatures as foul or incompetent as the Bokoblins being able to militarize an area of the map that was well protected. Maybe the King Bulblin, maybe the Bokoblin King, but even he doesn't seem like he has the intelligence for it. I get the suspicion that Zant is the one who militarized their people. Anyway, I'm having a blast. I'm gonna keep on going. This is a fun time. I don't really feel like there's any reason to talk about the anatomy of the Deku Scrubs, but I do have another theory. I think that the Skull Kids could also be lost Kokiris, which would make the Skull Kid in the Sacred Grove the very last of the Kokiri. It could also explain why Saria's song plays in that forest. What if the Skull Kid who leads you through the sacred grove is Mido? And it's pretty much just an assumption. Actually, it's pretty groundless. I wouldn't put much faith in that one. The other stuff I think we've proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But again, one last time before I go back to live commentary, I just want to say, this is all based off of my observations. I do not own a copy of Hyrule Historia. I don't do extensive research before I do one of these discussions. Because part of being enlightened is creating theories that are wrong. Coming to assumptions and conclusions that turn out to be false. There was a time when scientists used to think that the four elements, water, earth, air, and fire, existed in all living creatures in some form or another. And we've since learned that those are all forces and not elements. Anyways, we're just about back to the point where I want to cut back into the video. So I'm going to go on ahead and let you guys go. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. I'm sorry, I got a little bit lost in this one. Yay! Alright, everybody. I think that's just gonna about do it for this episode. Next time, hopefully, we'll finish up the Arbiter's Grounds. I've been Ninjo X, the Enlightened Gamer. Until next time, stay enlightened. Hey everybody, Ninjo X here. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I really appreciate the support. If you want to give more support, why not click the like button if you liked what you saw, or consider subscribing if you really enjoyed it. Also, feel free to click on any of my other projects, my vlogs, my side, my last Let's Play, which was Pokemon Blue, and just share, talk about it in the comments section, and enjoy yourselves. As I've already said, stay enlightened.